Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with hosts Amy Babinchek, James Kernan, and Carl Polachek. Produced by Kernan Consulting and for the international MSP community. We are dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional. Hey everybody, welcome back to the SMB Community Podcast. It's James Kernan back with you, and I am here with my good friend Amy Babinchek. Hey Amy, good morning.
Hey, James. It is a good morning. Lots and lots of snow.
Lots
Makes
of
me
snow in the
happy.
Midwest. Yeah, I think Amy and I were both comparing our workouts that we've had over the past few days of shoveling snow. So the only good news is it's very light snow, even though we've both gotten quite a bit of it. So
Yeah, I was telling James about the leaf blower method to snow removal that I've seen more and more of that around here. And today's snow that we've gotten, it's so light and fluffy. You can absolutely just blow it around with your leaf blower. Of course, there's about 6 inches of it too, but you know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got quite a bit. I was out several times, first time with a shovel and a broom because it was very light, and then had to take the big quad runner out there. I'm a man and have to do manly things and make it fun, or it's not worth getting out there shoveling snow. So I had to ride that big quad runner with a blade on it, but that was a good time. Good time. All right. Well, hey, we got a lot to talk about today. We've got the MSP question of the week. Let's start off with that. And the question that came in is, how do you get the most out of attending industry events? Okay. How do you get the most out of attending industry events? How would you respond to that, Amy?
Well, um, I I have over the years developed kind of a method. And so, one of the things I do, you hear a lot of people say, but I don't know that everybody actually does it. And that is to try to sit with somebody different at lunch every day. So if it's a multi-day event, sit at a different table each time and see who sits down. I'll often sit at an empty table, right? And just wait and see who shows up. And most of the time it's people I don't know. And so you get to meet a couple of people and that's how you start to build out your network and share LinkedIn profiles and all that. And then, the other thing that I do is if it's a small conference where you have opportunities to ask questions, where at the end of a session they'll say, anybody has a question. Um, I always try to have a question. Okay, so that helps me stay focused because as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, what question I'm going to ask the speaker. And so, so I'm formulating, I have to digest the stuff they're talking about so I can formulate that question in my head and then ask the question at the end. And that was something that I did for years and years. And I think it also sort of helped with my public speaking as well, because just asking a question means you have to stand up in a room and hold the mic and say a few words, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. I really like the idea of making sure you sit at different tables for the meals. I tried to do that as well, even though most people have a tendency, if you know someone there, where you're traveling along with a coworker, you have a tendency of all kind of hanging out with each other. But I love your idea of making sure you sit at different tables to talk to different people. And you brought up something else that I thought was interesting. The industry is filled with a ton of introverts. And it could be socially awkward when you're sitting down at a table or you're standing in a circle and like nobody's really talking. And what I've found to just try to break the ice is I'll reach out and shake someone's hand and said, "Hey, my name is James Kernan. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you." Just to kind of get the conversation started.
Mhm.
Um, and that always seems to help. And then, we all know this in the industry. Once we get talking, then there's no turning us off. But I've always there's always that awkward silence when you're in these circles of people, and I've I think that's a fun tip just to kind of break the ice and get things going. Um, I also like kind of going to specific targeted events, and my goals normally are similar. One, I want to learn, be educated on something new. And then secondly, I'm there to network. And sometimes it's specific people I'm looking for or specific companies that I want to make sure that I'm networking at. I kind of like going in with a plan ahead of time. And then if I can, if it works out on my calendar, I kind of like getting there the night before, so you have a chance to kind of catch your breath and get mentally prepared. And then normally there's some fun networking going on that night before the event too. So
Yeah,
those are
when I was new in business, one of the things that I would do is I would make sure that I attended sessions that were not technical.
Mm,
And these days, a lot of conferences have kind of switched around where they're not so much about technical, but I would sort of employ the same strategy today and say that I go to sessions where I don't know anything about the topic.
mm,
Because if I don't know anything about it, then I'm probably not going to go out and learn it on my own. So I'll just go to all the weird off-ball sessions that are like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. I think I'll go to that and find out. And, for me, it's because it's all about learning, right? I'm at the conference to learn. And I know if it's a technical thing, I'll figure that out myself, right? Uh, but if it's, stuff I don't know about, stuff I've never heard of, that's the thing that is drawing my attention.
that's good. That's good. And one other quick tip that kinda came to mind, I was like, you know, people always think like, "What do I wear?" To things like that. I've seen some people, be too casual in my professional opinion, shorts and T-shirts and things like that. I always just like being business casual. You wanna look professional, and as a consultant and a coach and M&A broker, I don't wanna walk around in a T-shirt and shorts, so I normally wear a sport coat, nice collared shirt, and then, dress jeans or slacks, something like that, but, um
Yeah, I will say this is kind of a perfect time to wear those geek t-shirts though. So if you have a t-shirt that's got some geeky saying on it or something, that's a perfect time to wear that. And it will help that conversation starter too, right? People will comment on it.
exactly right, and me, I would wear that under my jacket, my sport coat,
Yep.
and being a man, uh you won't see me carrying a purse, but my man purse is actually my jacket. So, with lots of pockets when you're traveling. So, I for sure will be wearing my sport coat.
Yeah.
So, hey, and what ties into this is last week we actually talked about events coming up, industry events in Q1, kind of in the springtime. And I ran across a list. Our good friend Jay McBain posted a link out on LinkedIn and then up on their website, Canalysis. So it's the top 352 industry events in the channel for 25. So I'm going to drop this into the show notes, but just kind of another note on that. Both Amy and I were chatting about this, that we both saw the list, started going through the list, and then you quickly get overwhelmed and you realize, oh my gosh, there's like an event every day. There's over 350 industry events, and he probably didn't capture every single one,
He
just
didn't.
the maj
I know he didn't.
yeah, yeah,
Is it I mean, that's why they had to call it the top, right? So whatever that means, there's some criteria, but, I went to an event on Saturday that had 1,600 people at it, and it was not in their top list.
yep, good
Um,
point.
yeah, I'm going to an event on, first Wednesday this week that I'm speaking at. It's not on their list either. So, there's 352 events that they put on the list, one every day, but there's probably 5 going on every day. And, the thing is, we've been hearing from all the event people struggling to get attendees to their events. Well, man, there's
Why?
too many events.
Right. Yeah, I heard a statistic from one of the channel champions that attends lots of events as a vendor, and they said the normal headcount for historic events, they're down 30 to 40% from what they normally see. And I agree with you, Amy. I think it's exactly because there's just too many events going on. There's too much competition. It's really diluting things. So, I
Yeah.
guess case in point, if you do get a chance to go through the list, it's a good comprehensive list, but just look for the ones that, maybe fit your ideal profile, just be strategic. Obviously, you can't go to all of them, but maybe the local ones or pick a couple other again, my favorite are more the smaller events where you can have more meaningful conversations and learn. That's what I look for.
Yep. James and I are at lockstep on that. Small events, local events, those are the ones that you want to prioritize. And I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about how many events you should go to in a year. And I think we settled on about, four or so, something like that. Um, and I've always said as a business leader that I needed to go away from my business once a quarter just to clear my head, just get into a different space, shake things up. Um, and that was really important to keep my productivity up. And then by extension, you need to do that for your staff too, right? I always when I was going to conferences related to my MSP, I always brought somebody with me. And my staff really looked forward to it. They'd be like, "Oh, well, I didn't get to go last time. Does that mean I get to go this time?" It's like, "Yep, you're up. You get to go. You get to go with me to this event, right?" And I let them have their own event, not follow me around. They were just out there someplace. But um,
Yeah.
I think it's so important that it's part of the education and growth of your staff. So um, go out, find the events, send your people, and let them grow in their career.
That's that's talking down. That's a good point, and it is a nice little getaway, to clear your mind and, learn, put yourself in a complete different environment, and that's what's a challenge if you go to an industry event that's right in your hometown, because you have a tendency of not staying at that local hotel, not doing all the networking that's going on, and you still kinda stay absorbed into your business. So, I do like, looking at local events because it makes more economic sense to attend those, but, be careful, don't get sucked back into work if you do that. Just allocate time to be there and really listen and learn. So,
Yeah, I think by local, mostly what I mean is regional.
yeah,
Because it's very easy to
I guess.
travel in your region, right? A lot of times you can get back and forth without having to add an extra day of travel on it, which
Mhm.
makes a big difference. If it's a 2-day event, you need a travel day on either end of it. Now it's a 4-day event. Um, it's a lot more disruptive. But if you can go to a 2-day event that maybe takes you, 3 hours to drive over there, stay there, come back, now it's a super nice getaway and doesn't have those extra costs associated with it.
Yeah. So a couple other quick, highlights in the news. There was, something Amy and I have already talked about, quite a bit about, what the outlook in 2025 looks like. CRN Magazine actually posted their observations. They interviewed, the top, 500 execs as what are the biggest opportunities or evolving technologies for us as MSPs in 2025, and guess what they said?
Drum roll. Let me guess, you get 2 letters?
Yes. Yes. You nailed it. Yeah, AI obviously was the number 1, overwhelming, but then, what else was in there? Cybersecurity, cloud, process optimization,
Right.
efficiencies, and to me, that kinda ties into AI as well, but I thought that was interesting of what they were talking about, so that was good, and then, for you
James,
yeah,
let me insert something there. Um, I went through this process, in November when my mastermind groups that I have got together in person, And we went through that process on our own, and they came up with their things of what they thought was, the future and where the best opportunities were and where the growth opportunities were. And then when you get done doing all that, it was like, "Oh, why doesn't your MSP look like that? And if it doesn't look like that, what's your plan to get there?" And so I would highly recommend that everybody read that article that we've got linked in the show notes, and then think about what you have to do in your MSP to implement that. The opportunities are not listing out the things that MSPs are doing today, right? Those are not showing up in your highest and best opportunity is not to, deploy backup anymore. It was in the past, but it's not anymore.
Right. Right. Yep. No, that's good point. Good point. Good point. Hey, and before I forget, someone who I think you know as well, Amy, but a shout out to Jeff Grenier of Firelands IT up in Sandusky, Ohio. Jeff is a avid listener of the podcast and had some good questions and comments last week for us. So, a shout out to Jeff Grenier.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I do know Jeff. Very,
Yeah, good guy.
yeah. We should get him onto our 15 minutes with a smart person sometime because he is a MSP and also an MSSP. And owning two separate companies that way, I've always thought is a real interesting perspective on how to do security in for your clients.
Interesting market up there in Sandusky, Ohio. For those of you who don't know, Sandusky, Ohio is famous probably for two things. I think one, the movie Tommy Boy, right? Wasn't that the city that it was supposed to be in? But the big thing is it's the roller coaster capital of the world. So they've
Yeah.
got, what is that, Cedar Point up there?
Cedar Point, yep. They call it the roller coast. And
Love
yeah,
it.
it's
Oh,
huge. It's
yeah.
huge.
I've been beat up on many of those roller coaster rides. My kids loved it up there.
I actually knew a guy who was in a roller coaster club, and Cedar Point is a very popular place to get married for roller coaster aficionados. They go there and have big roller coaster parties and do their do their wedding nuptials on a roller coaster because they're it's that big of a center for people that are super into roller coasters.
The would have thought that you're gonna learn things like that on the SMB Community Podcast.
You know.
Great place to propose. It's one idea, one idea. Well, and to kinda wrap up what's in the news, for you Sophos fans out there, I know there's a lot of Sophos fans. Many of you know that, they acquired SecureWorks, and, SecureWorks, with that acquisition, that was a $859 million acquisition, but they announced that they're laying off 6% of their workforce. So that was a big reduction in staff. And the other thing that caught my eye, Amy, and we've talked about this before, being a publicly traded company and being a privately held company, I think 99.9% of our listeners are all privately held organizations, small to mid-sized businesses. But, it's interesting to see they blamed it on them delisting as a public company. They no longer need that staff, and they're delisting as a public company, and 6% is a pretty big number, uh,
That's a really big number. Yeah, I have to wonder if that's the whole story. There is a bunch of busy work to do when you're a publicly traded company. CEOs of publicly traded companies, I always, simplify it down to they run the stock market, somebody else runs the company. But, there's all kinds of paperwork and meetings and processes that have to be in place when you're publicly traded because, you know, thousands or millions of people now own pieces of your company and they want to know. So, but 6%, that seems like a lot. I mean, there's always redundancy when these large companies buy each other. So I got to think that the redundancy is probably also in that number.
I would guess that's probably the bigger part of the number. So, and they blamed it on something else, so I agree with you for sure. All right. Well, that was about it of what's in the news. Anything else going on for you this quarter?
Well, I had a really awesome experience this past Saturday going to a local event. It was Black Tech Saturdays, and it was everybody at this event, I'm going to say, was under 40, except for me. And it was inspiring and fascinating to hear what they're doing in technology. It was uh, everything, of course, was about AI and agents and clones of yourself and how you're going to manage those in the future. And everybody's showing off their new things that they've developed, and companies were blooming all over the place. It was incredibly inspiring to be there. It was an excellent, excellent event. Um, so out of my wheelhouse, I would not have gone if my niece wasn't speaking there, and she said, "Hey, I'm speaking at this event," and that caused me to look it up, and I was like, "Wow, this sounds amazing." So, so yeah, don't I know we're circling back around to events again, but don't miss out on the local events. There was 1,600 people here at this event.
Yeah, that's a good point. I speak in the Omaha surrounding markets at a lot of local business events and networking, economic events, and I love that. I love giving back to the local community and learning and networking with, people in the channel and outside the channel, and I'm always shocked, I think nobody else lives in Omaha, Nebraska in the channel, but I run into people all the time.
Right?
So, it's funny, yeah, but, I run into them, like, in Orlando, Florida, or, Chicago, right? Like, "Oh, you're from Omaha too? Oh my gosh."
Well,
So
yeah, there's also, in 2 days from now, I'm speaking at a Microsoft 365 group that is running out of the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce. And they do these events about once a quarter, and so I'm going there to speak about AI acceptable use and ethics. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. And I'm going to stick around, I think, for most of the day and hang out. They've got a wide variety of Microsoft 365 content. And it's going to be not so much our usual geek audience. It's going to be, it's a business owner audience. So look for those kind of events too, right?
yeah,
You want to be the MSP in the room at a business event. That's where you want to be too.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. All right, gang. Well, I think that's gonna be a wrap. We're at time, so, we're gonna wrap up our session for today. If anybody has a question of the week or wants to hear from Amy and I about a specific topic, reach out to me at james@kernanconsulting.com. We'd love to hear from you, and until next time, have a great week. Thank you for tuning in to the SMB Community Podcast. If you found this interesting or fun, please subscribe, share with your friends, and give us a thumbs up on your favorite social media. We would love to hear from you, so reach out anytime on the website at smbcommunitypodcast.com.